Smelling the potent mixture of coffee, pine needle, and morning freshness that would jolt you awake on family camping trips. Feeling, once again, the serene humidity of a tropical night so many years ago. Hearing, like the first time, the melody that accompanied so many of your ups and downs throughout high school, when you had that crush, when you lost a friend. Rediscovering the trinket that links us to those who were once loved and never forgotten. These vessels into the past carry us away to simpler times, where events held purpose and consequences were foreseeable, unlike the present, where every second is a turbulent, meaningless spiral into the next, and the directions you take rarely turn out right. Except that isn't quite correct either. Upon deeper reflection, we understand that every honey-glazed reunion with our past selves should also require a responsible chaperone, reality. With every teenage crush, we recall the pimples. With every childhood birthday, we acknowledge the absence of friends. We come to realize that the past was just as easily succumbent to the chaotic dizziness of the present, and that, even more so, it was merely time that gave it sense and meaning. Remembrance of things past is not necessarily the remembrance of things as they were, warns Marcel Proust. This is a sad but worthy concession. Memories are only as valuable as they are loyal to the truth, and so we return to our nostalgic indulgence with a deeper pledge to honesty. Nonetheless, and despite our allegiance to the truth, the return is always as painful as it is pleasant. Is it due to the previous insight? The fact that happiness is a rarity that we trick ourselves into treating as a constant? Happiness is the moment before you need more happiness, says fictional ad executive and nostalgia manipulator Don Draper. Is that all there is? Momentary joys interrupted by long stretches of struggle? Or is nostalgia meant to be painful? Take the word itself, from the Greek word nostos algos, usually translated as the pain of returning home. This etymological lesson rips out the flowery idealism of nostalgia in its modern form. Certainly one could still argue for the intact common definition, a homesickness or yearning to return that is literally painful. Equally, however, nostalgia is a painful process in itself. Why? As Mark Kingwell writes, we can chalk it up to the jarring dislocations and inarticulate grievings of coming back to something that is no longer as you imagined it during the homeward journey. We return to a place of comfort, a link to better times, and find it twisted and distorted. Note that this is not just about favorite films from childhood, pieces that fail to hold up to the scrutiny of our now refined adult taste. No, one can experience this pain with long-lost friends, family members, and even one's lost possible self. Hence the cliché retelling of someone looking in the mirror and wondering what happened to oneself, meaning the self of that long-ago utopia, where one felt, by default, much happier, where the world was much larger, and the possibilities were still just that. As Sylvia Plath writes, I saw my life branching out before me like the green fig tree in the story. From the tip of every branch, like a fat purple fig, a wonderful future beckoned and winked. I saw myself sitting in the crotch of this fig tree, starving to death, just because I couldn't make up my mind which of the figs I would choose. I wanted each and every one of them, but choosing one meant losing all the rest. And, as I sat there, unable to decide, the figs began to wrinkle and go black, and, one by one, they plopped to the ground at my feet. Certainly life is filled with endless possibilities, but just as equally, the certainty that our time to explore them will soon run out, necessity, greatly diminishes our chances of experiencing them all. And so we live various moments of possibility that must, for a good reason, die out and be found. While washing the dishes, or in bed on a Sunday morning, forever buried in the past. Nostalgia in this sense provides a space to mourn a past we can never revisit, whether it is a place, a self, or a moment. An interesting study by the psychologist Laura King captures this. King asked divorced women to write descriptions of their best possible future selves that are now lost due to the divorce, and the best possible self after the divorce, defined as the found possible self. She found that the level of detail given in the lost pre-divorce possible self was associated with lowered happiness but greater maturity. She also found elaboration of the found possible self was positively related to happiness and maturity. She concludes that while happiness may require us to avoid thinking about what might have been, maturity might require an awareness of the losses and sacrifices of adulthood. King shows us that a meaningful sort of happiness, what we may call personal growth, is not built on ignorance, but instead a healthy recognition of what is forever lost, and the gentle belief that something good is yet to come. Ignorance may be bliss, but not all forms of bliss require ignorance. Sometimes we need to be truthful and revisit past potentials. Nostalgia then is a necessary farewell, a pleasant and painful acceptance that what was comfortable, warm, lovely, and perfect was also impermanent. It is up to us to carry out this heartfelt act of acceptance, to mourn the loss of what once was, what could have been, and to, equally, celebrate that such mourning orients us towards that which we had once found meaningful, and that this orientation is still within us, that what we find meaningful still persists in future potentialities, awaiting us to experience them. At the end of our mourning, we find that not all is lost. Revisit the past, but accept that it is gone, that you can never truly return home. If you're lucky, if time holds its magical effect, you may even find that home is closer than you thought. But this will take time to know, of course. In the words of Kierkegaard, life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards.